flipping back to the central bank digital currency, it's not a cryptocurrency. It's not on a blockchain. A blockchain is just a ledger. They've been around since the 80s, no big deal. But this ledger will be maintained by somebody, probably the Federal Reserve. But there could be a new government agency doing it. Maybe
so Jim, a ledger that keeps track of everybody's transactions.
Well, it does two things. It does that. You're right, Kim. But it's kind of like a bank account. So we might quickly end up in a world where I have an account at a bank. You guys have accounts at banks. Well, those banks are either members of the Federal Reserve System, or they're smaller banks that are correspondents of bigger banks that are members of the Federal Reserve System, like Bank of America or Wells Fargo. Heaven help you with Wells Fargo. But the point being, the banks kind of keep all the books. We might be in a world where you would have an account at the Fed. Kim and Robert and I and everyone listening would have an account at the Fed. We'd have it on our iPhone or our Samsung or whatever our mobile phone is. And if I send you money, the Fed takes it out of my account and sends it to your account. End of story. Kind of like a Venmo type of thing with, larger denominations, et cetera. That has implications in terms of disintermediating the banks. Like if you can do that, which you can technically, who needs banks? But to your point, Kim, the selling point is, well, it's better, faster, cheaper. Okay, which it is. So, for example, I go to a bookstore and I buy a book with a credit card. So I get the book. Well, the merchant, the retailer, has this receivable, and so they sell it to what's called a merchant acquirer. Merchant acquirers are finance businesses that buy a whole bunch of receivables from a whole bunch of little retailers or even larger retailers. They then take that bundle of receivables, now we're talking hundreds of millions or more, and they deliver it to MasterCard or Visa, and then they get paid. Obviously, they make a little money on that. MasterCard and Visa then send those receivables to the banks that issue the credit cards, and then the bank sends me a bill and I pay the bill. So think about that. I buy a book, but you get 5 financial intermediaries. You get me, the retailer, the merchant acquirer, MasterCard or Visa, and the issuing bank. And the total fees are, like 2.5%, 3%. So why do we need 5 financial intermediaries with, let's say, 3% fees to buy a book when you can just have an account at the Fed and everything whips through the Fed, fast and easy, and inexpensive? So, and that's all true. That is how it could work if you had this digital dollar. The problem is, but let's assume the banks continue to play a role, because the Fed's job, people talk about, it's the Fed's job, reduce unemployment, squash inflation, now they want a Green New Deal. The Fed's supposed to make sure that nobody lends money to ExxonMobil, even though we're out of oil. But those are like ancillary. The Fed's main job from the beginning, from 1913, really 1907 onward, is to prop up the banks. Like that's why they're there. So I doubt they'll disintermediate the banks. But either way, you're going to have a faster, cheaper, better system for making payments. But what else? And this is the key, and this is why we're sounding the alarm a little bit on Executive Order 14067. So once it's digital, a couple things. First of all, they know your whereabouts. Now, they already know your whereabouts from your iPhone, unless you turn your iPhone off. And not just turn it off, but put it in what's called a Faraday sac, which is a special woven fabric of a metallic weave that blocks radiation. And by the way, do the same thing with your Easy Pass and a bunch of other stuff. But unless you do that, then they know where you are through your iPhone or your Samsung or whatever. So they already know your whereabouts. We have facial recognition software. People go, I'm going to wear a mask and sunglasses and pull my hat down. Okay. They have what's called gait recognition software, GAIT, meaning how you walk. Believe it or not, everybody walks slightly differently. Wow. And it's like a fingerprint. So even if you're wearing a mask, they see you walking down the street. They're like, that's Kim, or that's Robert, or Jim, or as the case may be. So they already know a lot, and they know your whereabouts. But now they're going to know what you're buying, right? Because every product has a SKU, stock keeping code, stock keeping unit code, with a QR scan, digital scan. They're going to know what you're buying. And this digital currency is programmable, meaning they can block certain purchases or not. So let's say you donate money to Elise Stefanik. She's an up-and-coming Republican member of the Republican leadership in upstate district in New York, or heaven help you if you donate money to Donald Trump. Well, they'll know that, first of all, and you might find that your account's frozen. Or let's say they want to see right now, if you work and you're an employee, it's a technical term defined, and you get paid and you get a W-2 at the end of the year. But they withhold it from your payment. They get paid every 2 weeks or whatever. Employer withholds taxes from your wages. And then you get your W-2, file your tax return, you reconcile, and maybe you get a refund, maybe you owe a little bit. But they got the money up front through withholding. But that's not true for independent contractors and professionals, so doctors, lawyers, architects, landscaping. So anybody who's not a W-2 employee doesn't have withholding. They got to pay their taxes. But what if they could just take it out of your bank account? It's like, yeah, okay, you're a doctor, but you put the money in this bank, and I'm just going to take, some number, 20% out of your bank account every month. And we'll send you a statement, 1099, file your tax return, and, you owe or you get a refund, but no more honor system. In other words, no more waiting till year end. We're going to take it out of your bank account. Or what if, as a form of stimulus, even though it's not stimulus, but they'll call it that, they say you get money in your bank account. Okay, but we're going to put a countdown clock on your bank account. And if you don't spend 10% of it in the next 30 days, we're going to deduct, that much. So in other words, use it or lose it. So now all of a sudden, I worked hard. I've made this money. It's in the bank. But you're telling me if I don't spend it, I'm going to lose it anyway. So I might as well go spend it. And of course, the idea is to stimulate the economy. But the point is, the number of things you can do, from surveillance to identifying your political preferences, withholding taxes, account freezes, account seizures, time limitations on your money. Your money's like a countdown clock. It expires after a certain period of time, et cetera. I could go on and on, but you take the point, which is it's not your money anymore. I've always said to people, if you put your money in the bank, it's not your money, it's the bank's money, and they'll give it to you if they feel like it. Well, this is that same idea on stilts. And this is like, and now the government's involved, and it's easier, everything easier, faster, cheaper about payments is also easier, faster, cheaper about surveillance, confiscation, account freezes, et cetera. And then people say to me, they explain that what I just said to you guys, and they say, oh, that'll never happen. It's already happening. I mean, it's already here. Talk to the Freedom Convoy in Canada, what my neo-fascist friend, Chrystia Freeland, who's the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, did to the Freedom Convoy. Now, okay, they pulled into Ottawa in the middle of winter, and I was just in Ottawa a couple of days ago, by the way. It's a pretty city, but pretty small, actually. They stalled traffic. They blew the horns at 3 a.m. All Trudeau had to do was come out, say, who are your leaders, meet with them, hear their demands, give them a few, not all. They would all go home, and that would be the end of it. He didn't do that. He went into hiding. He's sort of a coward. He's not very smart. But Chrystia Freeland is a tough cookie, to put it in polite terms. She called the banks in Canada. Now, the difference between Canada and the U.S., they only have 5 big banks. We've got like 5,000 or something. But there's, CIBC, Royal Bank of Canada, Bank of Montreal, Nova Scotia, and TD. She called the banks, identified the bank accounts of the truckers, and froze all their accounts. She didn't stop there. She then called the crypto exchanges because, I know what cold wallets are, but a lot of people put their money in crypto exchanges, got their names, froze their crypto accounts, seized their trucks. They couldn't feed their family. They were put in jail, held without bail, literally couldn't feed their family in the middle of winter, all because of a nonviolent protest. I want to emphasize there was no violence. Annoying. So give them a traffic citation for blowing your horn at 3 a.m, $500 fine, appear in court, whatever. I'm not saying there shouldn't have been any accountability, but being held in jail without bail, where all of your money's been frozen, your assets have been seized, they're non-returnable, and you can't feed your family for what, a nonviolent protest? But my point is, and that's an exercise in fascism, of course, but my point is that they did it all through digital banking systems and cryptocurrency systems. So, and they're doing it in China. They have what's called a social credit score. So if you, bad acts are, start with smoking, you're smoking, but you take a train to go to a protest, okay, and there are many runs on the bank. There's a group in China informing, don't pay your mortgages because, in China it's a little different because here the builder builds a house, and you build a house, a buyer comes along, buys the house, gets a mortgage, pays the mortgage, but they get the house. In China, you take out your mortgage before the house is built, and then you owe the money, but the down payment and the mortgage money is used by the builder to build the house, and you move in like a year or two later, but you're already on the hook for the mortgage, except that the developer stole the money and didn't finish the houses. But the banks are saying you got to pay the mortgage, and people are saying no. So people are traveling around China to join these protests, but in China you have a social credit score, so they identify you through the banking system, and then turn off your ability to buy a train ticket or a plane ticket.
Wow.
And then it goes on from there. You post something, the worst thing you do in China is compare Chairman Xi to Winnie the Pooh. He kind of looks like Winnie the Pooh. So, it's true. So if you post a Winnie the Pooh meme or something, good luck getting your kids into school. Good luck getting health care for yourself, et cetera. So my point is, this is already being done. And then people say it'll never happen here. Why not? Show me something that was really poorly done abroad that isn't being done here sooner than later, particularly with the Biden administration.